include, I think, No Child Left Behind. That program in and of itself is extremely expensive. And there are others that we can go, and this idea of reducing... I have stopped.
Mr. Hutchison. Good evening, Doug Hutchison. Bush did a lot of great things for this country. One of them was not bailing out Wall Street or starting that entire process. What we have done is what you do to errant children. They misbehave, and you go, oh, that's okay. You wreck the car, I'll buy you another one. Thanks. Thanks. Wall Street's still making millions and gazillions of dollars. Thanks for bailing them out, and we're paying for it. Mr. Bush, that is your legacy.
The preamble of the Constitution, some beautiful words. Provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare. The problem on all these administrations, because the deficit has continued going over both, is that we're actually providing for the general welfare and promoting the common defense. And how do we see that? $1.9 trillion increase.
Well, President Bush did spend a lot of money and pass some legislation that I would look at. One would be the Medicare Part D. That's what I was looking for. One thing I would tell you, I don't know everything about every piece of legislation that Mr. Bush passed, but I do know I am still waiting for an apology from him and his administration for the current president.
The next question is for all the candidates, starting with Mr. and Mrs. Awa, and then we work our way down around again. And this one, I've asked a lot of specifics about policy here, you know, specific programs. I want to ask something that's a little more sort of general ideological. I want to say, please name the moral, political, or economic thinkers who have been most influential on your view of the proper role of government. Starting with Mrs. Awa.
Mr. Sella, the moral, political, and economic thinkers for my will in government. I think John Stuart Mill, speak up please. John Stuart Mill, utilitarianism, I think was an important thinker for our government. We have to look to take care of our country and our individual liberties. He wrote On Liberty. And the foundation of any society, free society, is individual liberties that translates into economic liberties. And I think you got it exactly right. Thank you very much. Ed Malbeck. First time I got that. You're not going to get a sophisticated answer from me. It's my father, a truck driver. A conservative Republican that brought me up as a conservative Republican, and a conservative before a Republican. I don't know what I can say about him. He passed away a couple years ago, and it would have been great for him to see me now up here. He was always proud of me. He was proud I was a SEAL. He would be extremely proud of me being up here, and I think he's watching all this happen right now. Thank you.
Good evening, Doug Hutchison. In part of waking up, I've started doing my homework. The ones I've come now to really find most interesting would be people like Washington, Madison, Jefferson, and Adams. These guys didn't have YouTube, MTV, and everything else to keep them up at night, distracted. These people sat around and thought about this stuff. This was their life. Brilliant men. They wrote a lot. They've passed their wisdom down. There's a lot of books out there to read about them. That's what our country was founded on. That's what made us great. That's what we need to get back to. Thank you.
Scott Taylor. The first one would be George Washington, our first president, for his reluctance to serve, but his answer to the call of duty to fight for this nation, as well as serve as basically a citizen legislator as well. The second, Ronald Reagan, for his vision, his communicating the ideals of the American people, something that I still believe in, when he said that each generation goes further than the generation preceding it, because it stands upon the shoulders of that generation, and that you will have more opportunities than you have ever known. That's what I believe in. That's the America that I want. Thank you.
Jessica Sandlin, well, Mr. Hayek, of course, and Mr. Roosevelt, and the namesake of my alma mater, Mr. Madison. But I can't leave without talking about Dame Maggie Thatcher. I mean, what a woman. There's a story about her. She went to dinner with her cabinet, her young ministers in her cabinet, and said, the waiter said, "Oh, what will you have?" And she said, "The steak." And he said, "And the vegetables?" And she said, "Oh, they'll have the steak too."
Kenny Golan. I'm probably the only one that's lived under the Keynesian society over in Great Britain. But living there a year and a half made me not a fan of that economic theory. The guy who doesn't get enough credit, and Scott brought it up, is President Reagan. And the guy who recognized President Reagan's genius the best is Jack Kemp. Both of them are gone now, but they understood the modern society and what we could do if we unleashed the entrepreneurial society and reduced taxes in this country, and that's exactly what we have to do now.
Ben Weldon, 2 years of my life, obviously my father, and thanks to his desire for freedom from his family, fleeing a communist regime, brought our family here. And then under Reagan, when I served many years in the military, because he was truly the beacon of freedom. He knew this country was the greatest country in the world. And after traveling around the world, thanks to the military, seeing over 30 countries, and fighting for this great country, he's a man I look up for. I believe in his economic principles. I believe in his spirit and energy. I believe America is the greatest country in the world.
My moral compass was firmly set by my father, Ike Ridgel, an Iwo Jima veteran, and a person who has just led an exemplary life for me. 3 presidents: George Washington, he understood it was about service. Abraham Lincoln, because he, I believe, gave his life because he understood that the promise of America applied to every American. And finally, Ronald Reagan, that great American president, reminded us of who we are as Americans. And we need to be reminded of that again. We can get through all of this with the right leadership. I want to take a few minutes before we have our break here. I want to take a few minutes to deal with some foreign policy issues. Since, foreign policy and defense policy is very important to this district. First question I have is for Sandlin, Malbec, Taylor, and Golden. And that is, the Constitution gives a lot of authority to the President as Commander-in-Chief to make decisions about how to fight the war. What is the most important thing that you think Congress can do to contribute to the management of the war? Starting with Ms. Sandlin.
That's a good question. I think Congress can control the purse. I think Congress can determine whether or not it makes sense to go to war. I think Congress can decide whether or not it makes sense to send our men and women into harm's way in other countries, and whether or not there's enough evidence base for that. That's what I think Congress can do.
Mr. Malbec.
Ed Molman. Pretty similar. Yes, hold the purse strings. Don't fund it if we don't agree with it. Don't give the president unlimited power to do what he wants with our armed forces. The president can be stopped and managed by holding the purse strings. And Congress should be in support of the war. They should declare. They can declare war, but they should support the president's decision when he goes to war. Thank you.
I think Congress should formally declare war when we send our troops overseas. And I also believe that they should fully fund our military to make sure that we are keeping up with our ever-changing threats around the globe. We have got to be proactive and fully funding them. It's much easier to keep up than catch up. Thank you.
Mr. Gold.